It would be amazing to live in a world where we didn't have to worry about anything bad happening to us like in Minority Report, where we have this system of futuristic beings that can tell us when something bad is going to happen and everything's going to slip into chaos. Unfortunately, we don't have people like that and people go missing all the time. Some of them we're able to save, but many of them disappear and we will never find out what actually happened to them. Hello again, Most Amazing Top 10 family. I am your host, Chada Reyna, and welcome back to Most Amazing Top 10. I went through some of the strangest mysteries out there, the enigmas that no one has ever been able to solve, to bring you today's list of top 10 scary cold cases that have never been solved. Grab your thinking caps because we are going to be getting right into it. I would love it if all of you at home could like, comment, subscribe, and hit the little notification bell. Also stick around for the whole list because I'm going to be doing some more pet shoutouts, which you guys love so much. Remember, if you want me to shout out your pet, you can hit me up on Instagram. And without taking any longer, let's get into this list. Coming in at number 10, we have the Long Island Ripper. If you live in Long Island, I'm going to tell you something that's going to make it a little harder for you to sleep tonight. Since 2010, almost like clockwork, when summer rolls around, so does the Long Island Ripper. There have been 15 people that have been possibly killed by this murderer. The way that the police have been able to link the crimes together is by the tools that the Long Island Ripper uses to kill and dispose of the bodies. It seems that all of the victims have their throats slit and then are wrapped in the same tarp and rope. Most of the people killed by this person are prostitutes, and it seems that this maniac loves to prey on women. Police have investigated this case several times, but every time it comes up cold. They think it could be someone coming from out of state to perform these crimes and then drive back to where they live. Coming in at number 9, we have the murder of Bob Crane. Bob Crane was a budding TV star back in the 1960s. He was starting to become very well known in Hollywood. He ended up becoming good friends with a man by the name of John Henry Carpenter, who was a filmographer, director, and actually very famous. The two men had a passion for film, but not in the traditional sense. They both liked to go to bars, pick up women, then take them home to film their sexual encounters with them. You know, it's hard to meet people who have the same interests as you. I only tell you this because eventually the two had a falling out, and not long after that, Bob Crane was found dead, and blood matching Bob's blood type was found in the trunk of John Carpenter's car. Now, eventually the police dropped the case because they couldn't find enough evidence to put Carpenter behind bars, but it makes you think maybe Bob had some dirty dirt on his dirty friend, and John Carpenter wanted to make sure that he was silenced forever. Coming in at number 8, we have the West Mesa Bone Collector. Imagine this, you're going out for a nice walk with your dog, and your dog finds a bone. You think, oh, that's kind of gross, I don't want my dog chewing on some bone that he just found, so you pull it out of your dog's mouth, and then you realize, oh, this is a human bone. Well, that happened in New Mexico about 11 years ago. This woman who was on a stroll with her dog called the police, and then they brought in a whole crew to dig and find out how much of a body was buried there. Well, they were in for a big surprise because there was way more than just one person. In fact, they dug up 11 bodies which all belonged to women. When the police went back through their files to match up the dental records, it seemed that some of these women had been missing since 2001. This was a horrific sight. There was almost no motive to connect these women together, so the case has been unsolved to this day. Coming in at number 7, we have BETSY AARDSMA. This is one of the wildest cases because it happened right out in the open and not a single person was able to find out what happened. BETSY AARDSMA was at the Penn State University Library, and this was back in 1969. There was no internet, so if you wanted to get any sort of information, this would be the spot to go to, especially if you're a student. You're not going to graduate unless you take the time to read some books. Now, something strange was happening. One girl was sitting in the library and had been there for a few hours. It almost seemed like she had fallen asleep. Eventually, someone went to go check on her and they realized that there was a small pool of blood underneath her. So they called an ambulance, but when she got to the hospital, they found out that she had already been dead for hours. How did a girl get stabbed in a school library and not make enough noise to alert anyone and then bleed out before she could get any help? And of course, the killer was never caught. Coming in at number 6, we have the AXEMAN of New Orleans. Back before DNA testing, I think it was a lot easier to get away with murder, and that could be how the AXEMAN was able to do what he did. The year was 1918, and a series of people were turning up dead, all with the same MO. They were all slashed to death with an axe, which is probably one of the most brutal ways you can take a person out. There were a few leads. All the murders took place in New Orleans, and all of the victims were Italian. Some people suspected that this was a move by one of the crime families to try and stop the Italian mob from moving breaking into the southern city. Very little evidence was able to be put together outside of that. The only other thing that the police had to run on was a letter that was sent to the New Orleans newspaper that might have come from the Axeman himself. In it, he wrote that he didn't kill anyone who listened to jazz, which kind of sounds like a jazz musician, and then he tried to make jazz more popular by telling people if they listened to it, they wouldn't get killed. Coming in at number 5, we have Bible John. Police almost got to the bottom of this one, but then it slipped through their fingers. In 1968, reports of a killer were starting to swirl around Scotland. It was said that he would read verses of the Bible to his victims before he killed them. 3 women were killed, but no one was ever caught. Then in 2011, a young girl was killed in a similar way to the 3 women who were killed in 1968, and police were almost able to put the guy away. They nailed it down to Peter Topin, but after they didn't have enough evidence, they had to let him go. Coming in at number 4, we have JONBENET RAMSEY. This case made some major headlines. A pageant queen goes missing at the age of 6. Her parents call the cops and everyone goes looking for her. Major search is done, but the girl is nowhere to be found. A ransom note is found asking for money and they will return the young Ramsey girl. The family is terrorized, and then everything gets even wilder when the father of JONBENET RAMSEY goes into the basement and comes back holding his dead daughter in her arms. He had found her dead in the basement. There's been so many questions as to who might have killed this poor little girl. Some people think it was her parents. Other people say it was her brother. There have been several people throughout the years who have admitted to killing the girl, but none of these claims seem legitimate. Coming in at number 3, we have the Cleveland torso murderer. Back in the 1930s, some extremely gruesome murders started to pop up throughout Cleveland. Murders are always brutal, but what made these ones so much more disgusting was that it seemed that the killer was removing the head of his victims when they were still alive. Once he had decapitated the person, he would go to work on the rest of their body. He would start to hack off their legs and arms and then sometimes saw them in half. Yeah, I think it's safe to say that the Cleveland torso murderer earned his nickname, and of course, never caught. Coming in at number 2, we have the Atlanta Ripper, one of the most terrifying killers to ever hit Atlanta. Something truly tragic about this case is that some people think the murderer could have been caught or the murders prevented if it wasn't for the race of the victims. All the victims were young black women. So it's suspected that the police didn't do a full investigation because this happened in 1911. There were 5 dead women before police even started to piece the cases together. Of course, back in the year 1911, the chances that race had nothing to do with it are pretty slim. All the women were killed in the same fashion. They would have their throats slit and then be left out in the streets to bleed. And coming in for the number 1 spot are the HINTERKAIFECK murders. Alright guys, we've made it all the way to the number 1 spot, and what better way to end than a murder mystery that also is attached to a bunch of supernatural happenings. The HINTERKAIFECK farm was where a family of 6 lived in Germany back in 1922. There were rumors that a dark spirit hung over the farm and brought misfortune to everyone who stayed there. There was even a housemaid who worked there for a short time but left because she was convinced that the farm was haunted. One day a neighbor noticed that the family had not come out to attend to their farm and that they had left a fire burning in their barn. When this neighbor went to go investigate, they saw that the whole family had been taken out to the barn and bludgeoned to death with a pickaxe. The person responsible for this murder, of course, was never caught. Alright everyone, that is all we have for you for today's list, and as promised, I'm going to be doing some more pet shoutouts. Remember, if you want me to shout out your pet, you can hit me up on Instagram. I pick new pets every day, so if you don't get picked one day, you can message back another day. If it takes me a little while to get back to you, I am very sorry. I have a lot of these to do, and without taking any longer, let's shout out some pets. To kick things off, we have this little green bird right here named Marlover. I think that's a parrot, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't know parrots too well. Then we have Millie in this very nice edited photo that her owner made. She put a lot of work into this. After that, we have Jack, who is basking in the sun trying to enjoy as much of summer as possible. Next, we have this cat who has a little cute bow tie with a rose on it, and I didn't get a name for her, so I'm going to name her myself. We're naming this cat Smooches. And to close it out, we have a little bunny who I also didn't get the name for, so we're going to name this bunny Dingleblop. That sounds like a good name. All right, everyone, that has been our list. Thank you all so much for tuning in. As always, I would love it if you could like, comment, subscribe, and hit the little notification bell. Until next time, I've been your host, Chaderena, and try to solve these mysteries if you can. Bye. Then we have Millie in this very nice edited photo that her owner made. Then we have Millie in this very nice. Next, we have this cat who is a. Enigmas that no one has ever. The way that the police are able to link the.